What's up, guys? Today I thought I'd just share something with you. Um, just another one of my little lockdown videos here. I've had a lot of time on my hands to do guitar projects in the house, and interesting story. I started playing guitar probably around the age of, I don't know, 12, I think I was. I think I first picked one up at age 11. It was in middle school, and there was a program at my school called Explore, which was where if you maintained a certain grade point average, like if you were like a C plus or better student, then instead of going to study halls throughout the day, when you had free periods, you could sign up for a thing called Explore, and volunteer teachers of various disciplines would just offer to. It was more or less kind of a fun time and a learning experience for something that that wasn't part of your curriculum. There was one guy who had an Explore session called Baseball Talk. Another guy had Introduction to Aircraft. One of the teachers happened to be something of an aeronautics expert, and things like that. Some guys wanted to talk about nature. Teachers who knew something other than what they were trained to know offered these programs called Explore. I saw one that said Introductory Guitar, and it was taught by one of the nicer of the two music teachers. It was a really mean one guy, and he offered a guitar class, but his attitude was terrible. Nobody liked him. He was just a mean, snappy dude. And this other one was this really gentle kind of hippie chick lady. I'll never forget her. Her name was Miss Abrams. The guy's name was Klinkman. I don't know that I should actually be offering their names. Maybe I'll edit that out later. But I found out that Miss Abrams was doing a Guitar Explore. As soon as I knew she was offering one, I signed up for it. Not so much because I wanted to play guitar, which I wasn't against the idea. I just didn't really have it in mind. I just wanted to take what I thought would be an easy Explore class, something where you didn't really have to concentrate too much, and the teacher would be nice, and maybe I might know some of the kids in the class, which I turned out knowing quite a few. But that class exposed me really for the first time to guitars, and of course the school had this bunch of these little acoustic, miniature, child-sized guitars, excuse me, owned by the music department, and they were full of holes and scratched and beat up, and they had nylon strings on them, but they were all, they were all strung correctly, and then she would quickly go through and help everybody tune their guitar, and then she would just sit up front and kind of teach you how to play chords, open chords, explain what each component of the guitar was, all the basic stuff, and I actually did become interested in it. And then what really grabbed me was a couple of the kids in the class who I always thought of as just, other nerds, not really unlike myself. They were talking about getting a band going. And when I heard the word band, like rock band, I said, okay, that could be cool. I haven't found anything else to make me popular yet. I happened to be one of the higher grade kids in the class. I just, and kids in the accelerated classes didn't have a whole lot of friends in, 1977. So I went to the class, and after we got through a few basics, she started showing us how to play chords, and she would have each kid get up and play the chord cleanly at least once before teaching us another chord. And I ate it up. I just ate it up. I wanted to know everything. I found that I had the ability to learn by ear, but later on, minor theory started coming in, and I was fascinated to find out that music theory is basically mathematics, which I was pretty good in also. So after a while, a few kids began to really shine in the class. And you found out that one or two of them had actually had some sort of guitar exposure before this. Maybe their parents showed them or something, and they kind of had an edge on the rest of us, and that grinded my gears. Grinded. I would say ground, but that would mean that my gears went to pieces. But that grinded my gears. And I said, I'm not going to let this kid or that kid know more than I do on a guitar. I'm just not. Because I'm also going to be a rock star someday, is what I said. So I told the teacher what my goal was one day, about maybe a quarter of the way through the semester. And she said, well, that's really admirable, Larry. Why don't you just show us what you can do? Go ahead and and I asked for permission. Can I take one of the guitars home with me? And she said in front of the class, no, I can't let you do that. She says, but if you want extra help, come back after school. So I went back after school one day, and I knocked on her door, and she's in there doing paperwork at her desk, and she looked up, and without saying a word, she just reached down to the floor and picked up a guitar and just went, here. I couldn't give this to you in front of the other kids because then everybody would want to take one home. I said, well, then why are you giving it to me? She says, I don't know, I just think you have some kind of promise. And she went, I actually gave it to 2 other kids too, but I won't tell you who they were. I'm like, yeah, I have an idea who they are, and I'm going to beat them. So for the rest of that school year, every time I went to explore, the 3 of us, 3 boys, were kind of trying to outdo each other. One guy had a particularly good feel for the guitar. His name was Mike. The other kid's name was Gabe. Mike was just a great guy. Turned out to be our class president in my graduating years, but well, actually, he wasn't class president during my graduating year, but anyway, he became class president at least once. The other kid just turned out to be just your basic cool kid, kind of a sideline kid. But Mike was particularly fast at picking up the guitar, so I watched his hands, and Gabe would too. And Gabe didn't want to be outdone, so one day he stood up in front of the class and said, I want you all to understand that I'm going to be in a band and I'm going to be a rock star, and I will remember all of you when that happens. And the teacher looked at me and Mike and just said, you're going to let that happen before you? And I said, no, sorry, Gabe. Anyway, long story longer, that year came to an end, and then the next school year they actually offered guitar as part of music class. So of course me and Mike and Gabe shined brightly in music class. And that was with the other teacher, the one that nobody really liked that much. And he took it as an affront that he was teaching something to kids who might already know kind of what they're doing. He wanted to teach kids who knew nothing how to start out without somebody else outshining them. So he took the 3 of us and said, go across the hall to the music storage room and practice in there. All right? I'll let you know when class is over. So we got like a free ticket, so we just went over there and, we frigged off like any young teens would do or preteens would do. And but we did play guitar actually. And then one day Mike brought in a guitar of his own. What at the time would have been considered a nice acoustic guitar that he had gotten from his parents as a gift. And that drove me nuts. From that day forward, it was hounding my parents. I need a guitar. You don't understand. I need a guitar. And my father said, kid, why do you want to waste your time doing something like that? Why don't you learn a trade? I was like, Dad, you lay bricks for a living, okay? I said, someday I'll learn that, but that's not going to take me the rest of my school years to learn. So I want to learn something that's just mine. He's like, all right, fine, whatever. I ain't buying you no damn guitar. Do it like I did when you wanted something. You work, you get your allowance, whatever. You go get a job after school and you buy one. No. So I went to, Mom, Dad won't buy me a guitar. And she's like, well, we don't have a whole lot of money right now, kid, but I mean, So, in 1978, as I was turning 13, I went to my mother and I said, Mom, my birthday's coming. She's like, yeah. I said, you remember how I said that that I wanted, one particular thing? She's like, yeah. I said, well, I may have found one. And she's like, all right, where did you find one? I said, well, a local music store in the town where I lived in Massachusetts has one hanging on the rack that looks like it would be a good beginner's electric guitar. And my mother said, an electric guitar in the house? And I said, well, yeah, what's so wrong about that? And she said, let me think about it. And as my birthday approached, one day we got a visit from my mother's best friend. Her name was Cynthia. She was a free spirit, a little crazy. She actually, for the most part, grew up with my mom. She came for a visit one day. And Cynthia said to me, surprisingly, I heard you wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I said, well, I kind of do know how to play guitar a little bit, but I don't have a guitar to practice with. They won't let me borrow them from school anymore. And she said to me, hold on. And, my interest was piqued. And she ran out to her car, and she opened the trunk. And she pulled out a guitar case. She brought it into the kitchen and put it on the kitchen table. Boom. My father says, what's that? She goes, well, what does it look like? And Cynthia said to me, you know that I play guitar and I sing at weddings and things, because Cynthia she was religious. She was a Christian, and she belonged to some Christian group where she would take a guitar with her and she would play and sing, Christian music. And I had forgotten all about that. I'd never seen her perform. So she pulled out this acoustic guitar, and it had metal strings, steel strings, which I as yet had not played on. All the school guitars had nylon strings. They were classical guitars, but this one was, your basic acoustic, non-classical. It had a pick guard on it. And I said, oh, that's cool. And she said, you like this guitar? I said, well, yeah. She says, it just so happens that I just bought myself a new one. And that's at home. She goes, it's nicer, and I can plug it in to an amplifier so I can be louder. But this one you can't plug in, but I don't need it anymore. She goes, I was carrying it with me in case I could ever find an opportunity to sell it maybe to somebody. She goes, but you know what? It's your birthday coming up. I was like, yeah. She says, here, it's yours. And my father just went, oh man, here we go, noise in the house. I said, Dad, I promise I'll practice in the basement. And my mother was like, oh, that's great, but I was going to help the kid for his birthday. And I was like, well, Mom, this is cool. And I said, but Mom, it's not an electric. We'll talk later. So I had a few weeks to go before my birthday. I was playing this acoustic guitar that Cynthia gave me. I was so grateful. And it sounded beautiful. It wasn't all crappy and beat up and full of holes like the school ones were. And it was harder to play. And it was a challenge to me because I wasn't used to steel strings. And I said, oh, damn it, I'm going to learn. So eventually, my dad came down the stairs, the cellar stairs, heard me playing, looking at me. I said, I'm sorry, Dad, am I being too loud? He's like, what was that song you were playing a minute ago? I said, were you listening to me? He goes, yeah, I was up in the kitchen, right at the top of the cellar stairs. I was making dinner, and I heard you playing. He goes, yeah, you're not bad. You're getting better. I said, so you don't mind that I have this? He's like, nah, not really, kid. I don't know. I just don't want you to waste your time on things. I said, but Dad, every kid needs an activity. I go, so, and after a short discussion, he says, just play that song you was playing there with the chords. So I played some chords, and I wasn't sure what I was playing. I was just noodling around. And he said, no, that chord right there, and now play that other one. He's trying to describe to me, so I kept hitting chords until I said, yeah, that one. My father was remembering the song, and it came together, and when I had the chords in the right order, he started doing his barbershop voice that he used to do. And he started singing some song. And I said, I don't believe it. My old man's actually approving of me playing guitar. And anyway, that's how I won Dad over. That's a story for another day. But my mother, not to be outdone, said to me, you want to show me this guitar you were talking about in the store? And I said, are you serious? She goes, well, let me look at it. So I went down to the music store with my mom on an afternoon after school, and the music store owner, his name was Ronnie. And he says, what can I help you with? And my mother goes, that guitar right there. What's the price on it? And he looks at the tag, $60. She goes, $60, huh? That seems like a lot of money. He goes, that's a pretty good price for that guitar, man. And my mother says, well, will you take less? He's like, what do you mean less? She goes, I don't know. You take like $45? He goes, I couldn't do that. She says, 50? And he thought about it for a second. He goes, have you got anything to trade? And I said, he's not taking my acoustic guitar, Mom. And I said, well, Mom, you know, there is one thing you've got. She goes, what are you talking about? So you remember where Dad bought you at that yard sale years ago? You know, it's under your bed. She's like, the violin? I said, yeah, how often do you play that? You haven't played it since I was little. And she says, oh. She says to Ronnie, I've got an old violin. He goes, now violin I might talk to you about. He goes, I'd like to take a look at it. So we came back the next day and my mother brought the violin with her. And the guy said, well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you $40 for the violin. You throw in the other 20 and you can have the guitar. So she thought about it and she said, well, what your old man don't know won't hurt him. So she gave him the violin and $20, which was basically her whole allowance for the week. Mind you, this was 1978. And she said, well, this will send me broke for a week, but if it makes the kid happy. So he got it, and she says, does it have a case or something? He says, no case, just like it is. And I was so thrilled, I didn't even have words. And so the guy put it in my hand. He goes, let me tune it up for you real quick. He tunes it up real quick. He goes, go ahead. So I started playing it, and for the first time I realized that playing an electric guitar that had steel strings on it was easier than playing an acoustic guitar that had steel strings on it. So there I was, the proud owner of both an acoustic and an electric. And I carried it home, so happy I couldn't stop staring at it. I was tripping while I was walking. And we got all the way home, and I went down in the cellar, and then something hit me. What do I plug this into? I don't have anything to plug this into. And my mother's like, well, we'll have to talk to your dad about that eventually, but for now, hey, you know, practice on it, get used to it. So that was the guitar she bought me. And the adventure of obtaining my first amplifier, that came later. I'll save that for another story, but she put that guitar in my hands that day and left me in the basement to practice it. And I was so thrilled, and I played that guitar, well, you know, barring all the other stories around it as time went by, for 2 years I played it until I got something better, which, again, I'll share later. But I couldn't part with that guitar, that first electric guitar that I ever had. My mother went to pains to get it for me. She had to explain to my father that she traded in the old violin. By the way, he went through the roof. I have no idea what he paid for it, but he went out of his mind about it, and he just kept warning me, you better make it worth it for your mother, because that cost good money, that violin. Damn it. So he's back on the track of being mad at me, and it was one thing for me to be strumming an acoustic guitar that he could sing, you know, barbershop songs to. It was another thing for me to have an electric guitar to help me become a time-wasting, you know, rock band, long-haired hippie freak that he was. I mean, my father was born in 1927, guys, you know. Rock and roll music, even in 1978, was something new to him. He couldn't even pronounce the word guitar, by the way. My father always called it a katar. You and that damn katar. It was one of the New England accent specialties of my father, was not being able to say guitar. That's a katar. Hey, that kid's down in the cellar playing guitar. My Uncle John would come over. What's that sound I'm hearing down there? Hey, it's the kid. He got a couple of guitars down there. Guitars? For what? You know, he wants to be a rock star. You know these kids nowadays. Anyway. In 2 years, I got another guitar. A higher quality guitar. And by that time, I was amplified, of course. And I had met a few other guys that wanted to start a band. And from there, like I said, stories for other days. But what I want to share with you today is that about a week ago, I was surfing through YouTube, And one of the things I like to watch are guitar repair videos, or guitar build videos, or whatever, guitar modification videos. How to fix this problem, how to enhance this performance, how to modify a guitar to get more of this or that. I watch those videos all the time. And I happened to click on one where the thumbnail, the guy was holding a guitar that I'd seen before. And I said, wait a minute. So I watched his video, and I heard him saying, this guitar is from the 70s, and it sounds pretty nice. It's an underrated guitar, blah, blah, blah. The guy just talked about this guitar. And I said, I know that guitar. So when I was done watching the video, I said, I wonder if I could find that guitar. I don't think I ever traded it. Didn't sell it. I put it in storage. I had found a case. Somebody gave me an old case they weren't using anymore. And it fit the guitar, so I put the guitar in it, and I put that case in a closet. And throughout my growing up and adulthood and all the various places I've lived, that guitar case was always in storage and came with me wherever I went. And I said, I know I still have that. Now, you're talking about a guy who's got about 30 guitars in the house right now. So I know I still have that. So I went into my deep storage closet, the walk-in closet, way in the back. I saw this old case and I said, oh, that's got to be it. And I pulled it out. And sure enough, what I pulled out of that box was my 13th birthday gift from my mother. And that was this guitar. Let me show you. This is a 1978 K-A-Y, what they call K-2 guitar. Letter K, number 2. Designed to look like a Gibson SG. Look at the pickups on it. They're single coil, microphonic pickups. It's the kind of tailpiece where you hook the string balls underneath, and then you run them over the bridge there, and then up the neck. There isn't even a brand name, no logo on the head. You notice that there's some pieces missing. Over the years, the plastic became corroded. This ferrule broke out. Still works. I had to wedge it in with a little piece of wood just to take up the tension there, but I've got some parts on order for it, but I spent an entire day and night cleaning this up. 40 years of storage was on this guitar. The original dirt from my hands when I was about 15 the last time I played it, was still on this guitar. There was about 4 strings on it. They were horrifying. They were just rust. I don't know how they were still on the guitar. 2 of the strings were missing. I don't even remember taking them off. But what was left was just brown, rusty pieces of steel wire, more or less, that had tuned down so far that they sounded like rubber bands. The pickups and the bridge and tailpiece were covered in hand filth. Just, what happens to old dust when you lay your greasy hands on it too much and you don't take care of it. The body, the paint job, had cracks all over it. Scratches all over it. And I found, believe it or not, that with a red Sharpie marker, it was the exact color of this finish. So I just went through and I hit all the spots with red Sharpie, and they're hardly visible now. And I took this fingernail reconditioning stick here, and I found that the white portion, you could rub it on shiny chrome, and it took all the corrosion off and didn't even leave a swirl mark on the chrome. That's a tip you guys can know for very old chrome. I went in there and I hit it with this, and I mean I hit it, and it did not leave a swirl. It didn't leave anything, and when it was done, it looked like that. I hit that with a rag and some cleaner, and then it shined out like chrome is supposed to look. I did the same thing to the pickups, although they've got some actual wear off on the corners that I couldn't rescue, but who cares? And I went and the frets were another story. The frets were brown and cloudy and horrible. I mean, even if I'd taken a new string and slid it across those frets, you would have heard horror. But this same tool, which is what I had in my hand, I just went through and I hit the frets with them, and they started shining. And then I took the buffing side and hit them with that, and now they're like mirrors now, you know. And they were crowned pretty well because I wasn't playing a lot in those days. I didn't wear them down. There were no pits, and they were basically level. Now, the things that I didn't know when I was 13 and I got this guitar are things that I know now. I know how to fix, and let me move you over here a little bit. And I applied what knowledge I've got today, which is still limited, but I mean, hey, you know, after 40 odd years of playing, you pick up a few things. So I went through and I did everything I could do. The neck has ever the slightest back bow, ever the slightest, just enough so that if I raised the bridge, see how that bridge raises? Little thumb wheels there? How simple that is. The bridge is actually pre-bent to be radiused like the frets, which was surprising. For a $60 guitar, where they paid attention to the radius, that's kind of astounding. And it's no wonder that old K guitars are now pulling some amount of money. Not huge, but something. I then went on a search all over the internet, and I'm finding these for about $200 and sometimes $300, depending on their condition. Now that's pretty good. This is a 1978 K-2 guitar, SG shaped. I'll try and show you the logo. See the logo on the pick guard? It's worn away. It used to be gold. It's worn away, but you can see it. You can see the K emblem. I don't know. Now, the switches. These two pickups are controlled by switches, individual slider switches. If anybody's familiar with Brian May's guitar, he uses slider switches for his pickups too. And he built that guitar. These weren't working. I had to take them apart, and I had to clean the copper contacts inside and kind of rebend the little copper contact plate that's inside each of those switches until they worked. And there's still a little bit of trouble sliding the neck position one. The bridge position one's pretty good. That one moves pretty good. The things that I found about the guitar is that this neck position pickup is far louder, probably twice as loud as the bridge position. Even after I moved the bridge position closer to the strings, it didn't make enough difference. So what I find with this guitar is that if I have both pickups on at the same time, it does sound sweet. If I have the neck position on by itself, it still sounds sweet, but a little muffled. When I introduce the bridge position in with it, so they're both on at the same time, it takes that big, bassy, muffled, round sound and adds a little bit of chirp to it. And it comes out pretty nice and sparkly. When I play the bridge position by itself, it's very, very thin and mosquito-y. But it almost kind of has its uses. It's just not very loud. If I wanted to play the bridge position by itself, I would have to crank it up. I'd have to crank the amp up probably a little bit. So I just kind of leave them both on at the same time, or just play the neck position. Those are the two ways I'll play this. It's only got one volume and one tone. Both pots work, although the tone pot really doesn't have a very big throw to it. The range that it has is kind of small. So in other words, first of all, it's logarithmic. So when you get right down near the zero, from 1 to 0, that's when you hear the tone muffle out. Anything over that is a very, very gradual increase. And the pickup is so bright that you have to play it kind of on tone setting around 2. And that affects both pickups, but it's nice because they're very bright anyway. The volume works fine. The pots just need to be cleaned a little bit, but they still work. The jack can be iffy sometimes if I put a little pressure one way or the other. So I got to get back in there and take a look at that jack and find out where the contact is weak. There could be a solder joint that's coming loose or something like that. But that's minor stuff. Missing a screw right here. But otherwise, I mean, it's a very, very thin kind of plywood body. It's actually walnut. It's got a walnut top on it. And the neck is also, pressed wood, but it's walnut. The pickups are extremely microphonic. That means that if you go to use distortion with this guitar, it's not really meant for it. But you can get some beautiful clean tone out of this guitar. I'm going to try and show you some right now. Here is the 1978 K-2. That was my 13th birthday gift. Played through, of course, my monoprice stage right 15-watt tube amplifier. Set up just to be a little bit barky. Again, I can't play very loud because my neighbors have big ears, and hopefully the mic is picking all this up okay. Let's play a song from the guitar's own era. It's just a nice guitar to noodle around on, and it's just nice and clean. That amp is very good for this guitar if I don't distort it too much. Do my little funky riffs on it. Won't bore you with that one anymore, but it's pretty playable all the way down. A little bit of fret buzz on the thick E string. Not much you can do about it. As I said, the neck has a slight back bow in it. The truss rod is released all the way, and it still has some back bow. I didn't want to heat bend this for fear of cracking the maybe cracking the old glue under the fretboard maybe and separating it in places. I don't want to do that. You'll lose all your tone. I didn't want to crack the finish. I didn't want to split. I mean, it's pressed wood. You can see it. See the way the neck is constructed? Basically, a stack of veneers. That is, it is walnut. Yeah, well, now that I'm looking at it, maybe that's not even pressed. It's got to be to some extent. Oh, that could be the natural figuring. Maybe it's not a pressed neck. It doesn't feel like a pressed neck. Of course, now the body. Well, that's different. You can see the layering. That's about 1 inch thick, and it is pressed walnut veneers altogether, I guess. Plywood kind of thing, but it's not actually plywood. I don't know how they actually did that in those days. But to the best of my knowledge, the guitar company K originated in Germany, but I believe that they farmed out their manufacturing to Korea and China. This guitar, I don't know whether it was made in Korea or China. And, I'm noticing now that there's a huge wind coming through my window, and it's blowing across my mic, and I'm watching the mic peg out sometimes. So hopefully this audio is listenable. I don't know. Maybe the wind might be chopping that mic up. But this may be a Korean-made guitar. It might be a Chinese-made guitar, but it was under German specs. So that's just my story about my first ever guitar, and I still have it. In fact, it's got a lot of similarities to my actual SG, which is sitting behind me over there. And I've been opting to play this one for the past week. I've just been every day playing around with it, just noodling. I think the mic's clipping. Boy, I hope that wasn't clipping the whole time. I may lose this entire video if that audio track is messed up, so I apologize. Hopefully it stayed in sync this time too. Yeah, that mic's clipping, man. Roll that off. Doesn't seem to be clipping now. You know, that kind of thing. You get the idea. So anyway, thanks for sharing this moment as I introduce to you my first ever electric guitar, the 1978 K-2 SG copy. This has been fun. I'm just going to go and jam for a while. And you know what, though? Let me just show you quickly what the pickups do sound like individually. That's something I should probably show you. Here is this bridge position pickup by itself. Bitey, thin. You can use it, it's just thin, not much volume. Here is the neck position by itself. See the difference? And here they are together. You know that song? Silence is golden, but my eyes still see. Silence is golden, golden, but my eyes still see. That's a pretty song by the Tremolos. Anyway, again, thank you for letting me share this musical history piece with you. I hope you're all having a great weekend. Take care of yourselves and stay healthy. PipeCat.